And let's bring in Riley Pollock now from Fan 960 Calgary. Riley, I said earlier, Riley, of all the producers I've had, you're one of them.
Yes, I am.
How you doing, Riley?
I'm doing really good. It's great to be on the show. I've been a long-time listener, first-time guest.
Yeah, that's right. And hey, here's the reason I said to Clark, we got to get Riley on because of the 36 million Canadians that are ramped up about the World Juniors this year. Riley's the most ramped up. You're number one. What is it that has you so geeked up about the World Juniors this year? Just before we get to the semifinals and the final, what is it that has you so excited?
Well, first off, it's supposed to be hockey season right now, so it's just nice to have some elite hockey on TV, I guess. And I've always loved the World Juniors since I was a little kid, so it was just that much more special this year, I guess, just with everything going on. So, yeah, I'm fired up. I've watched basically every game, whether Canada's playing in it or not, so excited for tonight.
Of course. And what's the vibe in Calgary, by the way? One, it's being held in your rival city, Edmonton, and I wonder if Calgarians have an issue with that. And two, I've seen a lot of people say I'm having a tough time getting into this, and I'm assuming it's because there's no crowd. And I'm thinking, if you're having a tough time getting into this, you were never a hockey fan in the first place, because I never noticed a difference in the Stanley Cup playoffs nor this. So that's one. How's it going over in Calgary, A? And B, are you hearing people saying it's tough to get into it?
It's going all right over here in Calgary, I think. I haven't heard a whole lot of people say that they haven't got into it. A few people, just because of some of the early scores, were getting a little bit down on it. But I think it's going to be very well watched here in Calgary. And our station, 960, has been talking about it quite a bit. So it's usually the lead topic, and I think people are buying in for the most part. But there's always something to complain about, Rod.
Well, that's it. Let's try to be positive. But I'm positive that Canada hasn't played a real exciting game yet. I mean, they should have they should have beaten the Slovaks by more. They've had shutout wins here in the quarterfinal and the semifinal. I mean, they haven't really been challenged, Riley. So are they finally going to be challenged tonight against the Americans?
I think the U.S. has the best shot of taking out Canada. I'm not sure it's going to happen or not. Devin Levi's been so good. That defensive end is so good for the Canadians that I'm not sure they're going to give up more than 1 or 2 goals at any point in this tournament. But if anyone had the chance to do it, I think it's Trevor Zegras and the Americans. So as much as I don't like cheering for the Americans, I was kind of hoping so that Canada might get tested a little bit here in the gold medal game.
You know, I watched Zegras, and he reminds me a little bit of Patrick Kane. He reminded me of Kane in international play, but I think he might be better. I don't know if he's got, Kane's got grit. Kane's got grit. I don't think people understand that. You watch Chicago, he's got grit. From Elias Powell, a question from a viewer, part of the Sheldon Mafia. He says, Riley, where does this Canada team rank compared to the dominant Canadian teams of the past?
This might be, well, from what I can remember, maybe the second best team that I've seen. That lockout year team, I don't know if anyone's touching that, but it's a really good hockey team this year, and I mean, we've seen it on the ice. Like you said, they haven't really been tested a whole lot. They really took down the Russians, it seemed, with ease yesterday. So right now, I think this is the second best team that I've seen or that I can remember seeing at the World Junior Tournament.
I know, it's unbelievable because they don't have a ton of stars, but you can't argue with their domination. You just can't. So before we move on, what's your prediction for tonight's gold medal game?
I think it's going to be a 3-1 win for Canada. I just don't see Devin Levi letting in more than 1 goal.
No, I know. He's been sensational. There's no doubt. Okay. You know how much I hate the Flames, Riley, and from what I understand, it's mutual, and that's fine. I have them as my number 1 team in the country, in the Scotia division. What's the excitement like for in Calgary going into the NHL season?
Well, it's really ramping up. Yesterday was the first day that the Flames were on the ice, so there was a few line combinations that people were talking about. Chris Tanev was partnered up with Mark Giordano for the first on-ice session, and the Flames, of course, brought Tanev over from the Vancouver Canucks. So it's getting exciting here. I was working the afternoon show yesterday, and it was a lot of Flames talk, a lot of line combination talk. So it's getting ramped up, and I think the Flames are pretty deep. I wasn't sure that they made great moves in the offseason, especially defensively, but they're pretty deep up front with, they brought in Levo and Simone, and it's going to be exciting. I'm so excited. I think, 9 days away from puck drop, so it's going to be a great time.
Craig Campbell from the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto is watching. He says the Florida Panthers have drafted both U.S. and Canada goalies in Knight and Levi. The interesting thing is that Knight's the first rounder and Levi's the seventh rounder. So if it comes down tonight to a goaltenders duel, another very interesting thing to be watching tonight in the gold medal final. But Riley, speaking of goalies, what's happened with Cam Talbot? I'm sorry. I mean, he got them past the Jets in round one last year, had him close against Dallas before the Flames imploded, and then they bring him Jacob Markstrom. Like, is Talbot still around? I'm sorry, I lost him. Like, he's
in Minnesota.
He's gone.
He's in Minnesota now.
What's the backup situation behind Jacob Markstrom?
Well, David Riddick's still there, and he's had parts of good seasons and some parts where he's struggled. Mostly in the back half of the last two seasons, he's kind of slowed down a little bit after a couple hot starts. So I think he's a great backup. I think he'll play I guess they're only playing, 56 games. So he'll play probably a good quarter of the games, maybe a third of the games. And I think he offers a great backup option for Jacob Markstrom. So I think they have a great 1-2 in Calgary right now. And I think that the Flames really wanted Riddick to be their starter, but he just hasn't put 2 full seasons together. So they needed to go to plan B, and that was pick up Markstrom, who's had a great few seasons in Vancouver. And I think he's the most solid goaltender that the Flames have had since Mika Kiprusoff.
No doubt. From Colin Andrew, a viewer, scary thought on this Team Canada. What if Doc didn't get hurt and the Rangers would have let Lafreniere play? What if it would have meant they would have won 10-0 tonight? Levi would have set a record for shutouts with 4 or more, and they were even more dominant than they already are. But they haven't lost a game yet. So how much more dominant can you get? So it says a lot for Canadian hockey. From Colin in Ottawa, he says Flames are getting 7-1 to win the division on some betting sites. That's amazing value for a team that should compete for the top of the North Division. Look, I got him number 1 too, and people laughed, and that's fine. I'm used to that. We'll see at the end. Any chance of overconfidence there? And let's not forget, they're going into a season with Jeff Ward as the full-time coach for the first time. Riley, is there any chance that their heads get too big and they read their press clippings?
I feel like in Calgary, they've been a little undervalued from their moves. A lot of the fans, I don't think, are too happy with what's gone on here. I'm sure goaltending-wise, everyone's very happy, but I've heard a lot of, that 3-spot, 4-spot from people in Calgary that they're expecting from the Flames. So I think maybe it's a little different here than everywhere else because, I haven't heard a whole lot of first place talk coming from the Calgary area when it comes to the Flames.
You know what? I'll say that about Calgary, by the way. They're fairly humble. They've had their hearts broken enough that I think they get it. You know what I mean? They're always into the Flames, but they're never pumping. They're not like Leaf fans who have the Stanley Cup parade planned every year. The Flames fans, they do get it. They know hockey. My God, for sure. But they are not a get ahead of ourselves market. And I respect that about them. Riley, what's getting more talk in Calgary right now? CFL isn't playing, but I mean CFL or NFL. What's the football buzz in Cowtown right now?
I'd say it's a little bit NFL leaning just because we're heading into the playoffs. The Stamps have made a few moves, but I feel like a few other teams have been a little bit heavier in the moves department when it comes to free agency. Yeah, I would say just with the playoffs coming up that it's pretty heavy NFL right now.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Well, just now, it just ended up the video freezing up. So we'll let you go, Riley. Are they giving you some airtime on Fan 960, by the way?
Yeah, it's there's possibly some, and whenever I get on that afternoon show, I get on a little bit with Pat and the boys. So it's been real fun out here.
All right, good. Well, I'm happy that it's worked out. Say hi to all my friends out there, buddy. And sorry I didn't see you over the holidays, but we'll keep in touch. All the best in 2021.
Thanks so much for having me on, Rod. It was nice talking to you.
Riley Pollock from Fan 960 Calgary. Craig Steen writing on Twitter. Busta Riles? I believe I gave him that nickname.
Is it stuck?
I believe that I gave him the nickname. Busta Riles.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.